My videos are made for entertainment purposes only. All source materials and media are found in the public domain and comply with the US Fair Use and the UK Fair Dealing Guidelines. These are my own thoughts and opinions and might be wrong. Please do your own research.
So we always knew that Harry wanted basically what his brother had, a happy relationship, the family, that relaxed lifestyle. He was never that comfortable in front of the camera, but nor was he that uncomfortable. He seemed to have a very good relationship with the royal press pack, who would keep their distance. They didn't interfere very much. There's a lot of unwritten rules within that journalistic circle. For instance, when William was at St Andrews, they left him alone. When Harry was in the army, the access they got to him was very organised, and he most of the time was left alone to be a soldier, and it was all reasonably comfortable, to be honest. I don't, almost to the point where we didn't see them all the time. You didn't really hear that much about the royal family. And as a Brit, I find it quite extraordinary now that they seem to be in the papers the whole time. Yes, there were little bits, Zara might go off on her horse and we might see something about that, but nothing sensationalist, nothing with this sort of undertone of sort of dislike. It almost harps back a little bit to the Charles and Camilla era, when after William and Harry's mum died, Diana died, he quickly became involved with Camilla, and Camilla had a really long road to go to get back into everybody's hearts and to be accepted. And we almost feel like we're going back to there, which is so sad for the Queen, I think, and so unnecessary, and frankly of Harry's making. He seems to have developed into this character that none of us recognise, and is so needing of the press. I say so needing of the press, but obviously at the same time they're saying they can't bear the press and can't bear the media attention, and have actually fled to one of the most packed cities in the world to avoid the media attention. But going back a little bit, so Harry was this army guy. He partied, he had girlfriends, nothing hugely serious, but you could see that he was starting to grow up a bit. He obviously had his charities like Centre Barley. He started the Royal Foundation with William and Kate. And yes, they did talk about the loss of their mum. That would be an obvious place to start. But it wasn't in a woe is me, the world is terrible sort of situation. It was more, we've had tough times. We can, to some extent, empathise with the things that are going on in other people's lives. Obviously, there is an element of privilege there that you can't get away from. But, tough times happen to everybody. And it was more sort of trying to explain it in that way and to be camaraderie, I guess, with other people. I suppose Harry's always had a vulnerable child side, and the country have always felt very protective over him. I think once he stood behind that coffin, our feelings towards him would always be that sort of shoulder support as much as you could from the sidelines. But I think something very different happened. I think that he was sort of pottering along quite happily, and Meghan Markle saw this. She calculated this very carefully. I don't think that's sort of controversial to say now, to be perfectly honest. I think we all know that, starting off from the Deal or No Deal girl to, okay, I've got myself a part in a show. I understand, I think she was going to be acting in that show anyway. I'm sure I heard that somewhere. But she was like, okay, right, now what's my next move as a sort of jobbing actress? Well, if I'm going to make myself more serious, then I need to become more involved in charity. So we see lots of pictures of her holding, you know, vulnerable children or that sort of situation, speaking at podiums, very self-assured. Uh, a woman. Well, we don't exactly know how old she is, do we? But certainly towards 40. So, quite self-assured and confident in herself. And all of a sudden, she meets Harry and she becomes this slightly simpering, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do now. This is all very embarrassing. I really love him, but I don't know if I really want to be part of the royal family. Rubbish. This was totally contrived, totally organised. I think she thought to herself, right, I can go in there and I will be Diana. It almost starts to get a little bit creepy with the clothes and all that sort of stuff. She thought, right, I'm going to be everything he needs. And I think she worked out for herself that he needed to feel strong for somebody else. So she became this demure, sort of slightly vulnerable woman. I don't really know how to deal with all of this. You've got to help me. Brings him in, makes him feel like he's got to support and protect her, and then slowly winds it up to get it exactly where she wants it to be. To the point where, when they came back recently and they were at one of the do's, the hand holding got to the point where it must have almost been uncomfortable to the people that were in the room. They were not letting go of each other. It wasn't a normal, functional adult relationship. The codependence there was extraordinary. I mean, at one point, as we've all seen, he goes to say hello to somebody in a, slightly off to the side, and she will not let go of his hand. Really quite weird. And not only does she not let go of his hand, she doesn't walk towards him to make it easier for him to say hello. She holds back. And it reminded me very much of when you're walking with a child in a park or something and their attention is turned and they go to look at a flower or something, and you walk towards them, but you keep a hold of them and they look at the flower and you go, come on now, darling, let's go this way, come this way. And that's what it felt like to me. That's what it looked like to me. It's like, yes, darling, lovely saying hello to those people, but we're going this way now and I'm in control and I'm going to lead this. I'm going to manage this. You really can't manage this on your own, Harry. You don't really understand what's going on. I'm going to be the strong one for you, which actually, perversely, is the most dangerous thing and is actually him giving up control to her, probably unknowingly. I have a fair feeling that he doesn't quite know how this has happened. He might not even know that it's happening yet. I know that sounds silly, but from experience, it can take an awful long time to realise that you're being controlled, years, and you think that you are still managing everything and you are in control, but actually it's so subtle and it's so pervasive that you don't even notice. When he went to say hello to somebody else, and that tap on the shoulder, that little tap, it was almost imperceptible. I suspect most people in the room didn't even notice it. The way he jumped back, he didn't even question it. He jumped back and let her go first. If I had been Harry's family, his close family, the ones that know him well, that would have sent shivers down my spine, because clearly the control in that relationship is such that she doesn't have to say anything. She doesn't have to do anything else other than tap him and he will retreat. That doesn't come from a one-off thing. If I'd tapped my partner on the shoulder, he would have gone, yes. You know, do you need something? Is it something? Not, oh my goodness, of course you must go first. Really quite worrying behaviour. Let alone this ridiculous staging now in LA of, you know, going round in a rather haphazard way, delivering food parcels when frankly she could sell one of her dresses on eBay and probably keep the charity going for the next year. It's all incredibly contrived and designed. But I do wish the real Prince Harry would stand up, but my concern at the moment is that he doesn't even know who the real Prince Harry is.